Hey, what's going on, y'all? Six Packs Dunga back again with another video, and today we're gonna finish our little 3-video series where I discuss all of Boruto's current abilities / future potential abilities and place them all in a single video. The last 2 videos we went over all of Boruto's Uchiha abilities as well as his OTSUTSUKI abilities, and today we're gonna be looking at all his Uzumaki abilities. So sit down, grab some popcorn, and get ready to dive into it because we have quite a bit of abilities to cover in this one. But before we do, I think you guys can all guess what I'm gonna ask from you before we get into the video. Yep, you guessed it. I'm gonna need everyone to drop a like. We're on a hot streak with the likes, I can't lie. But like all hot streaks, they must come to an end. But not today. So let's get this one to 400 likes. Hell, why not? Why can't we get 400 likes? We done it before, we can do it again. I'd appreciate very much if you would show me that hospitality. And without further ado, let's hop into it. Now, unlike Boruto's Uchiha abilities and OTSUTSUKI abilities, this category of abilities from Boruto is the most extensive. Not potential abilities, I'm talking about abilities he can perform right now, to be clear. So when it comes to his Uzumaki abilities, we're going to be talking about all the abilities he learned from the beginning of part 1 to the start of 2 Blue Vortex. And we'll of course cover the highly likely possible techniques as well as the techniques he learned from KASHIN KOJI. So don't worry. Okay, so I guess we'll start easy. Let's start with his generic wind style abilities. So the first one is Wind Release Gale Palm. Even though Wind Release doesn't really have to be under Uzumaki abilities, I'm just putting it under that category for algorithm purposes. Just like how I put Purple Lightning under Uchiha abilities. Like, it's not technically in Uchiha abilities, but I'm putting it under that category because it's a Sasuke-like ability, just like how Gale Palm is a Naruto-like ability because of wind style. Just for the people that may be a little confused. Gale Palm is one of the earliest techniques we've seen Boruto use. As a prodigy child, he was able to use wind style and have extremely strong control over it since he was in the academy. Gale Palm is a really simple technique. All it is wind compressed into a powerful gale, which has enough force to knock over a person or a very large object. It really depends on who's using it and how well they can perform the jutsu. It's more effective when it's in conjunction with shuriken and kunai to increase the speed at which they move. Or in Boruto's case, he likes to use them with his own body or clones to increase the speed at which they fly towards his opponent, which he then calls a whole separate technique called Boruto Stream. The technique is the same, but it's a different concept. You see, when Boruto uses his Boruto Stream, he's amplifying his clone speed or his own speed to blitz an enemy. He then can use that as a diversion to catch his enemy off guard or chain that with another technique. Very simple use of his wind style. And I'd say it's a really useful technique for Boruto to have very early on in the series. And we see Boruto still uses Gale Palm in 2 Blue Vortex. He created a gust of wind so powerful it blew Hidari away from Himawari and the others. If Boruto uses this technique in conjunction with another attack, it can be very effective in knocking his opponents off balance and dealing massive amounts of damage. The next technique I'm going to mention is harem jutsu, or sexy jutsu, whatever you want to call it. Come on, bro, you didn't think I was going to leave this out, did you? The most iconic jutsu of all time, right? It helped defeat Kaguya. Bro, come on now. Okay, but all jokes aside, this is also one of Boruto's techniques he learned very early on in his academy days. But he didn't actually use it until the time slip arc, if I'm correct. I don't need to explain sexy jutsu. Anybody who's ever watched Naruto knows what it is. It literally just transformed Boruto into a girl. The way Boruto uses it, I'll give him a little credit, it's very useful on serious missions. Because there was this anime only arc where Boruto uses this technique on an intel gathering mission in the Land of Silence. The mission was to find and capture who was illegally in possession of Hashirama cells. He specifically used this technique to get close to a man who was a prime suspect in this mission. Surprisingly, there was also some shinobi that had the same idea and also transformed themselves into girls. So I guess, you know what, now that I think about it, that episode was crazy. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. But that's just to show you sexy jutsu can be used in more ways than just to play pranks. Okay, I'll say this. Whose sexy jutsu is better between Boruto and Naruto? I feel like you gotta respect the OG with it, but Boruto's version has a little bit more of a mature vibe with it. Konohamaru clears, by the way, but between Boruto and Naruto, who do you have? Leave it in the comment section. So before we get into the many different variations of the Rasengan, we absolutely cannot forget the king of the Uzumaki abilities, the Shadow Clone Jutsu. So I'm pretty sure Boruto knew Shadow Clone Jutsu even before his academy days. As much as Naruto used this technique throughout the series, this being the first jutsu he ever mastered, it's no surprise it's the same case for his son. So the Shadow Clone Jutsu, not to be confused with Clone Jutsu, Shadow Clones are actual real clones. Clone Jutsu are not tangible clones, they're only illusions. Shadow Clone Jutsu allows its user to create one or more clones of themselves. The user's chakra is then evenly divided between themselves and their clones. Creating one clone will give it half the user's chakra, and creating two clones will give each a third of the user's chakra, and so on. We've seen Boruto use this jutsu a bunch in part 1, but we haven't quite seen him use it yet in Tubular Vortex. I don't know if that has anything to do with the karma, because we have to remember, the lower the level of chakra Boruto is at, the easier it is for Momoshiki to take control over his body. So I don't think it's the best technique to use in combat, because it splits his chakra in half. Even more if he creates more clones. But I think Boruto will use this technique pretty soon. He won't create a large number of clones like his father, just because he doesn't have crazy amounts of chakra reserves. But I think 1 or 2 will suffice, only if he has to use them in battle. So now it's time to get into Boruto's Rasengan. So of course, this isn't the first Rasengan Boruto performed in the series, but to get it out the way now, we're gonna put the original generic Rasengan here first. The OG Rasengan needs no introduction. It was created by Minato for the purpose of protecting Kushina, and it was also named by Kushina. The Rasengan is a swirling sphere of chakra that spins rapidly in multiple directions. We've seen many variations of this technique. We've seen it rival the size of Biju bombs. We've seen it be tossed, even compressed into a tiny little ball. So I guess we'll start with Boruto's signature Vanishing Rasengan. You see, this variation of the Rasengan was created by accident when Boruto unintentionally applied lightning release to the Rasengan when he was trying to perform it in order for Sasuke to accept him as his student. As it glides through the air, the nature transformation abruptly kicks in, causing the technique to disappear from sight until it connects to its target. This adds an element of surprise to the attack, as an opponent may lower their guard assuming that the technique has of course disappeared, only to find themselves struck by the invisible attack. The size of Boruto's Vanishing Rasengan has seen a significant increase after the Mujina Bandits arc, where it was shown to be around the size of a regular Rasengan. With enough chakra added to it, the Rasengan can become giant. So in other words, this can still be a relevant technique, even in Tubular Vortex. Although it might only work once until the opponent catches onto it, if he truly mastered this ability, Boruto may be able to make a giant Rasengan disappear, still keeping the concept of Vanishing Rasengan, but doubling or maybe tripling it in attack potency. And I actually can't wait for him to pull this one out of his arsenal again. It was such a good technique now that I think about it. That brings us to his more stronger variations of the Rasengan, the Wind Style Rasengan. Now I don't think this is something we'll ever see Boruto use again, just because he has much stronger Rasengan he can use, but this is a version of the Rasengan he picked up during his training with Kakashi in order to strengthen his Rasengan. So this is his version of a Rasengan that he applied wind release to. It can be thrown like Rasen Shuriken, but as you can see, it only differs in shape, size, and color. They're both very similar techniques, but you see Boruto's version of it is extremely weaker. I mean, to be honest, this Rasengan went nowhere, because shortly after it was introduced, it was replaced with high compression Rasengan. So basically, Boruto created this Rasengan to defeat the former Kara Inner, Deepa. The way it works is basically the user compresses and condenses the Rasengan to its limit, increasing the penetrative power of the Rasengan tenfold. Like how the Rasen Shuriken affected Naruto, using the compressed Rasengan can cause major recoil, greatly straining the user's arm. So in that aspect, it can't be spammed or used often. With this Rasengan, Boruto was able to penetrate Deepa's carbon armor, which is said to be 5 times stronger and twice as stiff as steel, but it can be susceptible to high forces, which makes the high compression Rasengan the perfect counter for such a technique. Next is the Rasendan, or spiraling bullet. Now this technique was a variation of the Rasengan created by Momoshiki when he took control over Boruto's body. So it's technically not Boruto's ability, But since Boruto was able to access Momoshiki's ability, as well as gain access to his knowledge and fighting experience, he should be able to do this technique with ease, and I think he'll show us this very soon in the series. So Rasengan is just an extremely small rasengan that can be shot at an opponent from the user's fingertips. Despite its size, it still possesses immense penetrative power, and is capable of even knocking opponents off their feet. As you can see, when Momoshiki used this against Code, it was able to completely go right through his shoulder, and that threw him off just enough for Momoshiki to blitz him and grab Kawaki. So it's quite powerful, and it looks to be pretty fast too. So before I get into Two Blue Vortex, I just thought I'd throw this one in there as an extra, and that is Rasengan Unison. So this one is a very simple concept. While activating their respective karma, one person channels their energy into the other, greatly increasing the size and explosive power of the Rasengan. Boruto and Kawaki used this attack against Boro. It was able to completely obliterate his entire upper body in mere seconds. So this attack technically has the necessary attack power to defeat one of the Shinju if directly connected. And now that Boruto and Kawaki are actually working together to defeat the Shinju, I wonder if us seeing something like this is even possible. I for one think it is. Boruto and Kawaki work good together. So them using an attack like this to defeat one of the stronger Shinjus, even possibly Jura, would be so exciting. So the last Rasengan we have now is the Uzuhiko. Rasengan Uzuhiko is undoubtedly the best Rasengan in the Naruto series. The Uzuhiko harnesses the user's own chakra along with what Boruto calls the planet's chakra to utilize the planet's centrifugal force. That works alongside the planet's rotation in orbit to infuse the technique with unlimited power. So it's basically a Rasengan that utilizes this planetary chakra to instill a sense of vertigo into his victims. So if you get hit by it, you literally feel like you're constantly rotating like the Earth. If the direct impact of the Rasengan doesn't kill you, and to be honest, a hit from a full power Uzuhiko should just kill you off contact, but if you somehow survive, you'll end up dying from the after effects pretty soon after, which makes it the most broken Rasengan in existence. The difference between when Hidari got hit versus Code is that Hidari got hit with an Uzuhiko at near maximum output. Since Boruto didn't have the luxury to charge up his Uzuhiko as much versus Code, he was able to survive the direct impact, but Boruto was still able to forcibly infuse the planetary chakra into Code's body, and the chakra was going to stay in his body until it eventually killed him. Until Boruto reversed the effects of the Uzuhiko so he can help him against the Shinju, which didn't work out so well. But unfortunately, in order to properly implement this planetary chakra into the Rasengan, you need to be grounded while forming this Rasengan. So it's probably not the best idea to use this attack against opponents who can fly. So yeah, that means against Kawaki and Jura, this wouldn't be the best option. Every technique has a weakness, and that is one big weakness of that technique. But no doubt, this is the strongest Rasengan in the series, especially at near full power. And if you want to learn more about the Uzuhiko, I did do a very extensive video on it, and I probably explained it a little bit better in that video. Right now I'm just going off the top of my head, but in that video I'm pretty sure I explained it a lot better. So if you're interested, click the video in the top right. Okay, next I'm doing Flying Raijin Jutsu. This will fall under the category of the Uzumaki ability strictly because of Minato. Sorry Tobirama, but Minato got this one. And now that Boruto learned his own variation of this technique with the help of KASHIN KOJI, we can talk about it. So let's get it. So basically, it's like Minato's FTG, but with much more restrictions. Boruto can only mark objects made of metal. It just acts as good conductors for his chakra. Because unlike Minato, who uses seals to use FTG, Boruto uses his chakra. To travel short distances, he can use ninja tools like Hunai and Shuriken to teleport, but for long distance traveling, it's better to use symbols because they're easier to visualize, as Boruto needs not only to sense the chakra from an object, but also visualize the object itself in order to teleport to it properly. So let's say, like the example Koji gave us, there's two very similar looking shuriken, one to the far north and one to the south. Even though Boruto can sense the chakra for both of them, he still doesn't know which one he'll arrive at because they both look the same. But with symbols like triangles and squares, you can actually sense the chakra from all the symbols as well as tell them apart, which is why using symbols is super important to utilize the technique to its full potential. So yes, FTG, one of Boruto's most used techniques as of right now in Blue Vortex. But there's another technique that I would like to shortly discuss that I think Boruto will reveal to us very soon in the series, and that is Sage Mode. Now, since KASHIN Koji is able to utilize Sage Mode and have it perfected at that, I think Boruto has the potential to use this technique as well. And it makes perfect sense for him to master it too. There's so many benefits. Let me just start at the massive physical attribute buff he can gain to his strength, speed, and jutsu. He can also buff his already mastered techniques like the Vanishing rasengan and Uzuhiko, like Naruto was very similarly able to do with his Rasen Shuriken and base Rasengan. Nature energy is also a very known weakness to the Ten Tails, and that could be applied to the Shinju right now, as Naruto used Sage Jutsu against a Ten Tails Jinchuriki Obito, and it was highly effective. And as an OTSUTSUKI, absorbing nature energy could potentially be easier for Boruto, making Sage Mode a natural fit. If Boruto wants another massive power buff to keep up with guys like Jura and this new and improved Kawaki without relying on the power of the Karma, Sage Mode would inevitably be the best possible option for him, without a doubt in my mind. The pros to mastering Sage Mode overwhelmingly outweighs the cons. And like I said, his primary trainer right now being KASHIN Koji, a clone of Jiraiya, this makes perfect sense for Boruto. I actually made multiple videos where I go in depth of what a Sage Mode Boruto would look like and why it's such a good technique for him to learn, especially in combination with his new OTSUTSUKI abilities. We could end up seeing a different version of Sage Mode that was never seen before in the series, so if you're interested in learning more about that, then click the video in the top right. So I guess that concludes all of Boruto's quote-unquote Uzumaki abilities, and I use the term Uzumaki very loosely, mostly because of the title I'm gonna put, but that's not really important. There was one ability that I wanted to give Boruto, but I ended up changing my mind, and that was related to the Nine Tails. I realized that was something that was probably originally designed for Boruto, but Ikimoto ended up giving it to Himawari instead just because of how insanely powerful Boruto was already. But Casey and Boruto would just put him over the top, and it's not even close, man. I just can't see that being a potential ability for Boruto. So you know what? Let me know what abilities do you think Boruto has the potential to learn down below in the comment section. And let me know who you think I should cover next. Himawari, Sarada, Mitsuki, Kawaki. But for that to happen, I'm gonna need y'all to do the following: like, comment, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you know when I upload or go live for chapter spoilers. I appreciate all who watched until the end of the video. I know it was a long one, but I appreciate it. And until my next one, I'll see you boys and girls later. And I'm out. Peace.